People are officially done with John Kelly after his absurd Civil War comments. This is fascinating. The White House Chief of Staff blamed the war on a lack of compromise. A lack of compromise. The Civil War. It's like Eric Haywood responded to this on Twitter. He said, so black people said, hey, we're not your property. And so there's Southerners said, yeah, you sure are. And John Kelly said, damn shame they couldn't meet in the middle. I mean, that really summarizes it, right? This is Ed Mazza writing over at Huffington Post, you know, kind of summarizing some of these. Ted Lieu, the congressman from, I believe, Hawaii, he said, Dear John Kelly, the United States of America exists because President Lincoln did not compromise. Right. Bernice King, I believe this is the daughter of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King. It's irresponsible and dangerous, especially when white supremacists feel emboldened to make fighting to maintain slavery sound courageous. I mean, let's just be clear about what happened here, about what's going on. Jim Turr sent me a clip this overnight. By coincidence, I'm not sure he even knew that John Kelly was going to be defending the Confederacy this morning. But it's from the South Carolina Articles of Secession, which are widely quoted. They're the most explicitly racist and the most, you know, clear. The South Carolina secession document comes right out and says, you know, this is all about slavery. The declaration of the immediate causes which induce and justify the secession of South Carolina from the federal union, quote, and now the state of South Carolina, having resumed her separate and equal place among nations, suggests that she should declare the immediate causes which have led to this act. Paraphrasing from the Declaration of Independence here. Those non-slaveholding states have assumed the right of deciding upon the property of our domestic institutions, in other words, slavery, and have denied the rights of property established in 15 of the states and recognized by the Constitution. That would mean the right of white people to say that black people are their property, right? They have denounced as sinful the institution of slavery. They have permitted open establishment among them of societies whose avowed object is to disturb the peace and to elloign the property of the citizens of other states, in other words, to free slaves. They have encouraged and assisted thousands of our slaves to leave their homes, and those who remain have been incited by emissaries, books, and pictures to servile insurrection. That's interesting, because servile and insurrection, I think, are like, you know, opposites, not synonyms. A graphical line, this is back to South Carolina's secession document. A graphical line has been drawn across the Union, and all the states north of that line have united in the election of a man to the high office of the President of the United States whose opinions and purposes are hostile to slavery. Government cannot endure permanently half slave, half free. Right, so make it all slaves, or we're out of here. That was what Robert E. Lee said. That was what these guys were defending. This is what these guys stood for. And John Kelly comes out and says, oh, no, it was just, you know, the Civil War was because we couldn't compromise, right? Abe Lincoln didn't want to compromise. Now, you can argue, and I think probably effectively, that Lincoln should have simply said to the South, okay, see you guys later. You know, there's a fair amount of documentary evidence that Lincoln did not expect that the Civil War was going to last for years, that he thought it was going to be a matter of a few weeks, and we'll take down these rebels, and that'll be the end of that. It just didn't work out that way. But, you know, without relitigating the Civil War, I think that we can look back and say, yeah, you know, the southern states, there were more slaves living in Mississippi and Alabama than there were white people at the time of the Civil War. This was the principal wealth of the United States, North and South, were slaves. And the products that slaves produced, like the city of Washington, D.C., and perhaps, frankly, most other southern cities, were built with slave labor. So it's like, it's ahistoric. So the question, and Ta-Nehisi Coates put together a brilliant tweet storm this morning. I retweeted the thing an hour or so ago. He says, the notion that the Civil War resulted from a lack of compromise is belied by all the compromises made on enslavement from America's founding. And he points to the Three-Fifths Compromise. I mean, just right there in the Constitution, that when you're figuring out how many representatives in the House of Representatives a state should have, it's a function of population. And people in the South said, hey, we should have more representatives in Congress because we've got all these people. And people in the North said, yeah, but you don't let those people vote, they're slaves. And the people in the South said, yeah, but they're people. And the people in the North said, then free them. And the people in the South said, no, but please count them. And that's where they were at when they said, okay, we'll count 3/5 of them to determine how many members of the House of Representatives you get. And we'll write it into the Constitution. That was a compromise. John Kelly, this is anyhow, Ta-Nehisi Coates. I mean, it's called the Three-Fifths Compromise for a reason, and it doesn't stand alone. The Missouri Compromise, the Kansas-Nebraska Act. Lincoln was not an abolitionist. He proposed to limit slavery's expansion, not end it. That was before the war. And, he goes through this whole long list. It shouldn't be necessary for us to acknowledge that the Civil War was fought to defend the institution of slavery, period, full stop. And it's an indefensible institution. Which raises the question, did John Kelly do this morning in order to change the subject away from the possible impeachment of Donald Trump or the prosecution of people in the Trump administration for high crimes and misdemeanors? Or did John Kelly say this morning? Did he do this, or last night, or whenever he did it? Or did John Kelly do this, say this, because he's an idiot? Somehow I doubt that a four-star general is an idiot. Now, maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe I'm naive. I haven't spent years in the military. I don't know. Well, actually, I do know one general. But actually, I think he's an admiral, but, same difference. But why did John Kelly say this? Is this the latest Trump administration effort to deflect our conversation? I mean, is that really what it's all about? Is John Kelly willing to destroy his own personal reputation and his own, the way that he is treated by history? Is John Kelly willing to do that just to help Donald Trump? It may be. I honestly don't know the answer to that question. It's increasingly looking like that's the situation. And then the question becomes, will Paul Manafort and, and his business partner and some of his associates, are they willing to go to prison for Donald Trump? And, so far it looks like yes, but I think that this whole thing here, the taking down Manafort and everything else, this is Mueller's way of saying, okay, buddy, this is what we've got on you. And to anybody else who's part of this is what we can do to you. They didn't even give Manafort the courtesy of calling his lawyers and telling him what was up.